Terence McKenna was an American ethnobotanist, lecturer, and speculative philosopher who made the psychedelic experience his laboratory, the Amazon rainforest his library, and human history his canvas. Born in Paonia, Colorado, in 1946, he grew up reading science fiction and natural history magazines, early hints of the intellectual juxtapositions that would later define his mature worldview, a fusion of rigorous curiosity and visionary imagination. After studying art history at the University of California, Berkeley, he broke away from formal education and embarked on a lifelong quest to understand consciousness through direct engagement with psychoactive plants. McKenna's decisive apprenticeship began in 1971 when he and his brother Dennis traveled to the Colombian Amazon in search of oca, a legendary monoamine oxidase inhibitor reputed to synergize with dimethyltryptamine. Instead, they encountered fields of Psilocybe cubensis growing in cow pastures near the mission town of La Carrera. Their immersion in high doses of psilocybin triggered a series of experiences that McKenna later narrated in The Invisible Landscape and True Hallucinations. He came away convinced that certain mushrooms carried not merely chemical but informational content, messages, as he liked to say, from a galactic ecology of souls. The episode seeded two of his most enduring ideas, the stoned ape hypothesis and novelty theory. The stoned ape hypothesis proposed that periodic ingestion of psilocybin by hominin ancestors accelerated linguistic innovation, visual acuity, and social bonding, thereby catalyzing the rapid cortical expansion visible in the fossil record. Critics objected that archaeological evidence was thin, yet the hypothesis resonated with McKenna's larger theme that mind and nature co-evolve through chemical intermediaries. Novelty theory, by contrast, was a mathematical speculation shaped by the I Ching, fractal geometry, and computer modeling. McKenna claimed that the ebb and flow of novelty, his term for informational complexity, followed a time wave that would culminate in an asymptotic spike on December 21, 2012. Although subsequent scholarship treated the prediction as metaphor rather than literal eschatology, the meme fused seamlessly with emerging millennial anxieties and Mayan calendrics, ensuring McKenna a posthumous presence in popular culture's 2012 fever. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he became a fixture on the alternative lecture circuit, delivering extemporaneous monologues that blended anthropology, mycology, quantum physics, comparative religion, and postmodern media theory. He spoke in lilting, hypnotic cadences, part Irish bard, part late-night DJ, often punctuated by self-deprecating humor. Audio tapes of these talks circulated hand-to-hand, then migrated onto bulletin board systems and early internet forums, making McKenna one of the first underground thinkers whose influence scaled digitally. He championed psychedelics not as hedonistic escapism, but as tools for individual sovereignty and species-level course correction, insisting that only a direct confrontation with the transcendental other could dissolve the lethal hubris of industrial civilization. His published works expanded these themes. Food of the Gods traced humanity's entanglement with psychoactive plants from Stone Age shamanism to corporate caffeine culture, arguing that the war on drugs was less a moral crusade than a campaign to monopolize consciousness. In The Archaic Revival, he urged Western society to recover shamanic techniques of ecstasy and communal storytelling, predicting that virtual reality and network computing would soon provide technological scaffolds for ancient visionary states. Students of media history note how prescient he proved. Rave culture, immersive art, and digital festivals like Burning Man indeed adopted psychedelic aesthetics as the visual language of a network generation. McKenna's critics accused him of romanticizing indigenous practices and of extrapolating sweeping metaphysics from private visions. He readily conceded the speculative nature of his claims, yet defended speculation as a legitimate mode of inquiry when ordinary scientific methods falter before subjective phenomena. Unlike the rigid prophet, he presented his ideas as models, inviting listeners to test them in the theater of their own experience. That invitation became a hallmark of psychedelic discourse, shaping communities devoted not to doctrine, but to iterative exploration. In 1999, McKenna was diagnosed with glioblastoma multiforme, an aggressive brain tumor. He faced the illness with the same equanimity he had advocated for psychedelic voyaging, remarking that death itself might be the ultimate bardo state described in Tibetan Buddhism. He died on April 3, 2000, at the age of 53. In the years since, his influence has only grown. The modern psychedelic renaissance, spanning clinical trials with psilocybin, decriminalization campaigns, and new scholarship on plant intelligence, often cites McKenna as an intellectual precursor. His audio archives reach new audiences through podcasts and curated playlists, while academic symposia revisit his hypotheses, not for literal validation, but for the fertile questions they continue to pose about mind, culture, and evolution. Terence McKenna remains a liminal figure, too speculative for institutional science, too empirical for mystical dogma, and too playful for ideological captivity. He invited 20th-century rationalism to turn its instruments inward, toward the psychedelic interior that had shaped human language and myth long before microscopes or satellites existed. Whether one accepts as models or merely enjoys their poetic audacity, McKenna's legacy endures as a reminder that the frontier of knowledge still runs through the uncharted corridors of consciousness, and that courage, curiosity, and humor remain essential companions on the journey.